Who invited her? My daughter-in-law hissed through clenched teeth. The words sliced through the air like a knife, cutting into my chest. I stood frozen at the doorway of my son's home, birthday cake balanced in my trembling hands, candles still flickering. My son's face reddened as he leaned toward her ear. "She owns the house," he whispered, unaware that I could hear every syllable in the sudden silence. The laughter and chatter from moments before had evaporated. 20 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. Relatives, friends, neighbors, all witnesses to my humiliation. My grandson's birthday party. I hadn't been invited. I'd baked Tommy's favorite chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, the same recipe I'd made for my son Michael every birthday since he was 5. I'd driven across town, my heart full of anticipation to see my only grandchild turn 8. I never expected to crash a party at the house I still legally owned. The cake trembled in my hands, mirroring the earthquake happening inside my chest. My daughter-in-law, Jennifer, stood there in her perfect sundress, her manicured hand clutching a glass of white wine so tightly I thought it might shatter. Her face was a mask of contempt, barely hidden behind a plastic smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Eleanor," she recovered quickly, voice honey-sweet but eyes cold as winter. "What a surprise. We weren't expecting you." I felt something crack inside me, a hairline fracture that had been forming for years. The weight of every dismissive comment, every forgotten invitation, every time they'd changed plans without telling me. It all crystallized in that moment. "Grandma!" Tommy broke the tension, running toward me with outstretched arms. His gap-toothed smile was the only genuine welcome in the room. I carefully set the cake on the entry table before he crashed into my legs. "I made your favorite," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Chocolate! Yes!" He pumped his fist victoriously, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. Michael approached, his expression a battlefield of embarrassment and guilt. He took the cake from the table, avoiding my eyes. "Mom, we, thought you were visiting Aunt Susan in Albany this weekend." The lie was so transparent it was almost laughable. My sister Susan had moved to Florida 3 years ago. Michael knew this. He'd helped her pack. "I wouldn't miss Tommy's birthday," I said simply. Jennifer's smile tightened as she slipped her arm through Michael's. "Well, how thoughtful. We already have a cake, of course. From that bakery in Manhattan? The one featured in Vogue? But we can set this one aside for later." The dismissal was clear. I was an afterthought, an inconvenience, a relic they'd forgotten to properly hide away. What they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd received the foreclosure notice on their house yesterday. The house I'd signed over to Michael, but retained legal ownership of when they couldn't qualify for a mortgage 5 years ago. The house where they'd never once invited me for Christmas. The house they'd now secretly remortgaged, forging my signature, taking out equity loans they had no intention of repaying. I looked around at the elegant party that my son couldn't afford, at my daughter-in-law in her designer dress, at the catered food and expensive decorations, all built on lies, all paid for with stolen money. My money. "Grandma, come see my presents." Tommy tugged at my hand, pulling me deeper into the house I legally owned but was never welcome in. I let him lead me, past Jennifer's scowl, past Michael's guilty sidelong glance, past the whispers and stares of guests, wondering who this unwanted old woman was. I smiled down at my grandson, the only person truly happy to see me. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said, reaching into my purse for the envelope containing the deed to my late husband's fishing cabin in the Adirondacks, the one property I hadn't put in Michael's name, the one place that remained truly mine. I'd planned to give it to Tommy today, to share stories of his grandfather teaching his father to fish in that same lake. Instead, I tucked it back into my purse. Something told me I should hold on to it a little longer. Something told me I would need it. As Tommy dragged me toward a mountain of presents that dwarfed anything I could afford to give him, I heard Jennifer's voice, sharp and clear despite her attempt to whisper, "Seriously, Michael, who invited her?" And my son's response, even more damning, "Just smile. Remember, we still need her signature on those papers." I didn't let my expression change. I didn't let them see the realization dawning, the pieces falling into place. I just smiled at my grandson and decided, in that moment, that I would never sign another document for them again. The party continued around me, but something had fundamentally changed. In the space of 5 minutes, I had gone from feeling hurt to feeling something much more dangerous. Clarity. "My name is Eleanor Wilson. I turned 72 last March, though most people guess I'm in my early 60s. I've always taken pride in my appearance. Not vanity, just self-respect. My late husband James used to say I had the best posture in Boston. Straight-backed Eleanor, he called me, who never bent for anyone. Until I did. Until I bent so far for my son that I nearly broke. I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. It's a 3rd-floor walk-up in a converted Victorian, with creaky floors and drafty windows, but I've made it home. My neighbors are mostly graduate students who smile politely, but don't really see me. That's fine. I've grown accustomed to being invisible. After James died 9 years ago, I sold our family home in Winchester, the one where we raised Michael, and used most of the money to help Michael and Jennifer buy their house in Lexington. A grand colonial revival with a sprawling yard, far more house than they needed or could afford on Michael's middle management salary and Jennifer's part-time interior design work. But they had dreams, and I wanted to support them. It's an investment in Tommy's future, Michael had said. We want him to grow up in a good school district. So I signed the checks. I co-signed the loans. When their financing fell through at the last minute, I put the house in my name, but gave them full use of it. Temporarily, Michael had promised. Just until we refinance. That was 5 years ago. My morning routine hasn't changed in decades. I wake at 5:30 without an alarm. I make a single cup of coffee in my French press, then sit by the window watching the sky lighten over the rooftops. I read the actual newspaper, not online. I still prefer the feel of newsprint between my fingers. By 7, I'm dressed and ready for the day. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I volunteer at the public library, helping with their literacy program. On Tuesdays, I have lunch with my friend Martha, who's been my confidant since college. Thursdays, I shop for groceries and do my laundry. Weekends used to be for family, for Tommy, but those invitations have become increasingly rare. We're just so busy, Jennifer always says when I call. Tommy has so many activities. Maybe next month? Next month never seems to come. My apartment is neat but full. Bookshelves line every wall. Mysteries, biographies, poetry. James's collection of antique fishing lures sits in a display case by the window. Photos crowd the mantel. James and me on our wedding day, Michael's graduation, Tommy as a newborn in my arms. Happier times. What the photos don't show is the slow erosion of my relationship with my son. They don't show how Jennifer subtly pushed me to the margins of their lives. They don't capture Michael's gradual transformation from the boy who called me every day to the man who screens my calls. I have enough money to live comfortably, though not extravagantly. James's pension and my Social Security cover my basic needs. I have savings, had savings, before much of it went to Michael and Jennifer. For emergencies, they said. For Tommy's college fund. For house repairs. I never questioned it. That's what mothers do, isn't it? We give and give and give. Yesterday's mail brought the wake-up call I should have seen coming years ago. An overdue mortgage notice for the Lexington house, the house in my name, with a threat of foreclosure. 6 months of missed payments. Equity loans I never approved. My signature, forged with just enough care to pass a banker's cursory glance, but not enough to fool me. I sat at my kitchen table for hours, papers spread before me, a cold cup of tea forgotten at my elbow. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I couldn't process it all at once. It came in waves. Disbelief, denial, bargaining. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe they meant to tell me. And finally, a cold, clear anger. I've never been an angry person. I was raised to be accommodating, to smooth over conflicts, to put others' needs before my own. James used to tease me about being a peacemaker to a fault. You'd apologize to someone who stepped on your foot. He'd laugh. But there was no peace to be made here. No misunderstanding to clear up. My son and his wife had stolen from me, lied to me, excluded me from my grandson's life, and now they were at risk of losing the house I'd sacrificed to give them. I called my bank first, then my lawyer, Patricia Goldstein, who had handled James's will and who, thankfully, was still practicing at 75. I made appointments with both for Monday morning. Then I found the invitation to Tommy's birthday party, not sent to me, but mentioned on my daughter-in-law's social media page that she didn't realize I followed. Big backyard bash for our special boy, the party that I wasn't supposed to know about, wasn't supposed to attend. I decided to bake a cake and show up anyway, not to cause a scene. Not yet, but to see with my own eyes what my money had been funding, to look my son in the face and give him one last chance to be honest with me. Instead, I heard those words, "Who invited her?" And in that moment, standing in the doorway with a homemade birthday cake and a heart full of betrayed love, I finally understood what James had meant about bending too far. I had bent myself into invisibility. I had bent until I was just a signature on a check, just an ATM in human form, just an afterthought at my own grandson's birthday. I was done bending. As I watched Jennifer place my lovingly baked cake on a back counter, replacing it with their expensive store-bought one, I made a silent promise to myself. By Tommy's next birthday, everything would be different. I would reclaim what was mine, not just my money or the house, but my dignity, my voice. After 72 years of being a good girl, a supportive wife, a self-sacrificing mother, Eleanor Wilson was finally going to stand up straight again. The morning after Tommy's birthday party, I sat at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee, watching raindrops race down my window. The gray sky matched my mood as I replayed yesterday's humiliation in my mind. But beneath the hurt, something else was growing. A cold, clear determination. My phone rang, displaying Michael's name. I let it go to voicemail, something I'd never done before. A mother always answers when her child calls. But was he still my child? Or just a stranger wearing my son's face? The voicemail notification pinged. I pressed play and set the phone on the table. "Hey, Mom." Michael's voice sounded strained, artificially casual. "Sorry about yesterday. Jen just got her signals crossed about the party planning. Listen, we need to go over some paperwork for the house. Nothing major, just some refinancing stuff. Can you come by this afternoon? Around 3? Great. See you then." No question about whether I was available. No acknowledgement of their lies. Just a summons to sign whatever documents they needed to continue their charade. I deleted the message and called Patricia Goldstein instead, moving our appointment from Monday to today. Then I did something I'd never done before. I drove to the bank and withdrew $20,000 in cash from my savings account. The teller looked concerned. "Mrs. Wilson, that's a significant withdrawal. Are you sure?" "I'm quite sure, Deborah." I smiled at her, tucking the envelope into my purse. Sometimes cash speaks louder than words. By 2 o'clock, I was sitting in Patricia's office. She hadn't changed much in the 9 years since James's death. Still razor sharp, still favoring bold statement necklaces over her black turtlenecks. Her eyes widened as I laid out the foreclosure notice, the loan documents with my forged signature, and the $20,000 in cash. "Eleanor, this is serious. Forgery, fraud, we should go to the police." I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to understand how deep this goes first." For the next hour, Patricia outlined my options. The house was legally mine. I could evict them. I could sue them for the forged signatures. I could press criminal charges. But none of that gets me what I really want, I said quietly, which is my son back, my relationship with my grandson, my dignity. Patricia leaned back, studying me. "Sometimes you can't have everything, Eleanor. Sometimes justice and reconciliation are mutually exclusive. Then I'll have to be strategic about which to prioritize and when," I said, surprising myself with my clarity. "I have a meeting with them at 3. I need to know exactly what they're planning." Patricia insisted on drawing up a power of attorney, giving her authority to act on my behalf. "Whatever they want you to sign, don't. Tell them you need to think about it. Get copies of everything." I left her office with the power of attorney document in my purse beside the cash, feeling strangely empowered. For the first time in years, I was taking control instead of just responding to others' needs. At precisely 3 o'clock, I rang the doorbell of the house I legally owned. Jennifer answered, her surprise at seeing me barely concealed behind a tight smile. "Eleanor, right on time. Come in." The house was spotless, all evidence of yesterday's party erased. I wondered briefly what had happened to my chocolate cake. Thrown away, probably, like my feelings. Michael sat at the dining room table, papers spread before him. He stood when I entered, awkwardly moving to hug me. I allowed it, but didn't return the embrace. "Mom, thanks for coming. Can I get you something? Tea?" "No, thank you." I set my purse down and took a seat across from him. "You mentioned paperwork?" Jennifer and Michael exchanged a glance. He cleared his throat. So, we've been looking at our finances and we have an opportunity to refinance at a better rate. The market's really favorable right now. I see. I kept my voice neutral. And you need me because... Another glance between them. Jennifer took over, her voice honeyed with fake concern. Well, since the house is still in your name, which we should really fix one of these days, right? We need your signature on these documents. She slid a thick stack of papers toward me. I didn't touch them. What exactly am I signing? Michael jumped in. Just standard refinancing papers. Lower interest rate, 30-year fixed. Actually saves you liability in the long run. I nodded slowly, remembering Patricia's advice. May I have copies to review? Jennifer's smile tightened. It's really better if we submit these today. The rate lock expires. Nevertheless, I'd like copies. I met her gaze steadily. I never sign anything without reading it thoroughly first. James always insisted on that. At the mention of my late husband, Michael's expression softened slightly. Of course, Mom. We can make copies. While Jennifer reluctantly took the papers to their home office to copy, I looked around the dining room. Photos of Tommy lined the walls, school portraits and sports team photos. None included me, though I'd been at many of those events. It was as if they'd edited me out of Tommy's life narrative. Tommy was happy to see you yesterday, Michael said, attempting small talk. He loves that chocolate cake. Yet you served the bakery cake instead. Michael had the grace to look embarrassed. Jen had already ordered it. It was expensive. More expensive than a grandmother's feelings? The words hung in the air between us. Michael looked away first. Mom, it's not like that. We've just been busy remortgaging my house without my knowledge. I kept my voice low, controlled. His head snapped up, eyes widening. What? I received a foreclosure notice, Michael. 6 months of missed payments on a house in my name. Equity loans I never signed for. The blood drained from his face. There's been a mistake. The bank showed me the paperwork with my forged signature. I leaned forward. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize a forgery of my own name? Jennifer returned with the copies, her timing impeccable. She sensed the tension immediately, looking questioningly at Michael. Your mother was just saying that I need time to review these documents, I interrupted, standing and taking the copies from her. My lawyer will be in touch. Lawyer? Jennifer's voice rose an octave. There's no need for lawyers, Eleanor. This is family business. Yes, I said, gathering my purse. Family. The same family that didn't invite me to my grandson's birthday. The same family that forged my signature on loan documents. The accusation landed like a grenade. Jennifer's face contorted with anger, while Michael just looked stunned. How dare you? Jennifer hissed. After everything we've done for you. I almost laughed. What exactly have you done for me, Jennifer? Besides excluding me from my grandson's life? Besides attempting to commit fraud using my name? Mom, please. Michael stood, reaching for me. Let's talk about this calmly. There's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding was mine, I said, stepping away from his touch. I misunderstood what family meant to you. I walked to the door, my heart hammering but my voice steady. Don't try to file those papers. Don't forge my name again. My lawyer will contact you about the existing loans and missed mortgage payments. As I reached for the doorknob, Jennifer's voice lashed out behind me. You'll regret this, Eleanor. If you think you see Tommy now, just wait until you go down this road. I turned, meeting her gaze. Are you threatening to keep my grandson from me? I'm saying family matters should stay in the family, she replied, her meaning crystal clear. In that moment, I saw her completely. The calculation, the manipulation, the cold ambition that had driven her to use me all these years. And beside her, my son, passive and complicit, unable or unwilling to stand up to her or for me. Then consider this a family matter, I said, opening the door. One that will be resolved within the family, in court, if necessary. I walked out into the spring afternoon, closing the door firmly behind me. The weight I'd carried for years, the need to be needed, the fear of confrontation, the desperate clinging to a relationship that no longer existed, seemed to lift with each step I took toward my car. For the first time in years, I felt like Eleanor Wilson again. Not just Michael's mother or Tommy's grandmother, but a woman with her own voice, her own boundaries, her own power. It wasn't until I was halfway home that the tears finally came. Not tears of sadness or regret, but of relief. The first cut is always the deepest, they say, but sometimes it's also the most necessary, the one that finally sets you free. That night, unable to sleep, I pulled out the old photo albums from the hall closet. Dust motes danced in the light of my reading lamp as I opened the first one. Michael as a newborn, red-faced and squalling in my arms. I was 28 then, exhausted from 20 hours of labor but radiant with love. James had taken that photo, my stoic, practical husband who'd cried when he first held his son. "He's perfect, Ellie," he'd whispered, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. "You made him perfect." I turned the pages slowly, watching Michael grow. His first steps, documented in a series of blurry photos as James tried to capture the moment. His 5th birthday, blowing out candles on a lopsided homemade cake, the first of many chocolate cakes I would make for him. His elementary school plays, where he was always the loudest, most enthusiastic performer, never hampered by shyness. There we were at Revere Beach, building sandcastles that the tide would soon reclaim. There was Michael's 10th Christmas, when we'd saved all year to buy him the bicycle he wanted. There he was as a gangly teenager, proudly holding his driver's license while James pretended to look terrified. So many sacrifices, both visible and invisible. The vacations we never took so we could pay for summer camps. The car we drove long past its prime to afford his college application fees. The second mortgage on our house to help with his tuition at Boston University. I remembered the winter of 1995, when James was laid off from the insurance company where he'd worked for 20 years. 6 months of unemployment, of quiet terror as we watched our savings dwindle. I'd taken on extra shifts at the hospital where I worked as a nurse, coming home with aching feet only to bake cookies for Michael's school fundraiser or help with his science projects. We never let him feel our worry. Children shouldn't carry adult burdens, we believed. We skipped meals sometimes, told him we'd already eaten. We canceled our anniversary trip, claiming we were too busy. We pawned my grandmother's sapphire ring, temporarily, just until James found work again. When Michael got into Boston University, we were still recovering financially. "Maybe community college first?" James had suggested gently. "Just for 2 years, then transfer?" But I'd seen the light in Michael's eyes when that acceptance letter came. "We'll make it work," I'd insisted. And we had. More shifts, more sacrifices, more corners cut from our own lives to expand his horizons. I found the photo from his graduation, Michael in his cap and gown, flanked by James and me, all of us beaming. We were so proud, so hopeful, so certain that our sacrifices had been worthwhile. The next album jumped ahead several years. Michael and Jennifer's wedding. She was beautiful, I had to admit, with her cascade of blonde hair and perfect smile. I'd had reservations. She seemed calculating, more interested in appearances than substance, but I'd kept them to myself. A mother learns to step back, to let her child make his own choices, his own mistakes. I paused at a photo of Jennifer and me at their rehearsal dinner. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Even then, I'd attributed it to wedding stress. Now I wondered if I'd willfully ignored the signs from the very beginning. Then came Tommy's birth. I'd taken a month off work to help with the newborn, cooking, cleaning, doing midnight feedings so the new parents could rest. I remembered Jennifer's increasing irritation with my presence, her subtle suggestions that I was doing things wrong, that I was interfering. "She's just protective," Michael had explained when I finally confided my hurt feelings. All new mothers are like that, but it wasn't just new mother nerves. It was the beginning of a systematic campaign to edge me out of their lives, to reduce my role to that of occasional babysitter and financial resource. I closed the album and opened another, this one filled with photos of Tommy's early years. His first birthday, where I'd been seated at a table far from the family. His 3rd Christmas, where my carefully chosen gifts were opened last, almost as an afterthought. Fewer and fewer photos included me as time went on. The most recent album was only half filled. Tommy's school pictures, sports teams, family vacations I hadn't been invited to join. The last photo was from 2 years ago. Tommy and me at the Boston Children's Museum, one of the rare days I'd been allowed to take him out alone. Jennifer had called 4 times during our 3-hour visit, checking up on us. I touched Tommy's face in the photo. He had James's eyes, the same warm brown, the same curious spark. My grandson, my last living connection to James. Being cut off from Tommy would be like losing James all over again. Setting the albums aside, I moved to my desk and pulled out a different kind of record. Financial statements, checkbooks, property deeds, the paper trail of my generosity. There was the initial down payment for their house, $200,000, nearly half the proceeds from selling our family home. The subsequent loans that were never repaid, $30,000 for essential renovations after they moved in, $15,000 when Michael was between jobs for 3 months, $25,000 for Tommy's preschool tuition at an exclusive Montessori school. I found the original mortgage documents, with my name as sole owner, but with an agreement that Michael would make all payments and eventually refinance in his own name, an agreement he had clearly violated. Most damning of all, I found copies of the equity line of credit paperwork from last year, paperwork I had never seen, with a poor forgery of my signature authorizing the bank to lend $150,000 against the house's value. Where had that money gone? Not to home improvements. The house looked much the same as when they'd bought it. Not to medical emergencies or other necessities. To their lifestyle, then. To Jennifer's designer clothes. To lavish parties I wasn't invited to. To vacations in places they shared on social media but never mentioned to me. I gathered everything into a neat pile, documentation of betrayal measured in dollars and cents. But the true cost couldn't be calculated so easily. How do you quantify a mother's broken heart? How do you put a price tag on years of manipulation and exclusion? My mind drifted back to a memory so distant I'd almost forgotten it. Michael at 7, coming home from school in tears because a classmate had stolen his lunch money. James wanted to march down to the school and demand justice, but I'd taken a different approach. Sometimes, sweetheart, I'd told Michael as I dried his tears. People take advantage of kindness because they mistake it for weakness. But being kind is never weak. It's the strongest thing you can be. Then why does it hurt so much? He'd asked. Because strength isn't about not feeling pain. It's about what you do with that pain. You can let it make you mean, or you can let it make you more determined to be kind, but on your own terms, with boundaries that protect your heart. Had I forgotten my own advice over the years? Had I confused self-sacrifice with love, enablement with support? I looked at the clock, 3:17 a.m. In just a few hours I would meet with my bank manager, then with Patricia again. I would take the first concrete steps toward reclaiming what was mine. But as I finally climbed into bed, it wasn't the house or the money that occupied my thoughts. It was Tommy, his gap-toothed smile when he saw me at his party, the genuine love in his eyes, uncomplicated by adult grievances and manipulations. I won't lose you, I whispered into the darkness. Whatever happens next, I won't let them take you from me too. As I drifted toward sleep, I found myself wondering what James would say if he could see our son now, if he could witness what Michael had become. The thought brought fresh pain, but also clarity. James had been my strength for 40 years. Now I would have to be my own. Tomorrow would be soon enough to begin the battle. Tonight, I would allow myself to remember, to grieve, and to gather my resolve for what was to come. The week after my confrontation with Michael and Jennifer passed in a blur of meetings, with Patricia, with bank officials, with a forensic accountant Patricia had recommended. The evidence of their financial misconduct mounted with each conversation, each document uncovered. They had not only forged my signature on equity loans, but had also stopped making mortgage payments 6 months ago, despite living in apparent luxury. The foreclosure process had begun. If I didn't act quickly, I would lose the house and still be held responsible for the debt. Through it all, Michael called daily, his messages alternating between defensive anger and placating charm. I didn't return the calls. Jennifer sent texts that thinly veiled threats about Tommy with superficial concerns about my mental state. I didn't respond to those either. My silence was strategic, not emotional. I was gathering information, building my case, preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come. Patricia advised me to document everything and avoid direct contact until we had a complete picture of their deception. What I wasn't prepared for was the escalation that came 8 days after Tommy's birthday party. It began innocently enough. Martha and I were having our regular Tuesday lunch at Rosie's Cafe, a small family-owned place we'd frequented for years. I was mid-sentence, telling her about the forensic accountant's findings, when I noticed her eyes widen, looking at something over my shoulder. "Eleanor," she said quietly, "don't turn around yet." But Michael and Jennifer just walked in. They're with an older gentleman I don't recognize. My cup rattled against its saucer as I set it down. What are they doing here? They never come to this part of town. Martha's eyes tracked their movement. They're being seated 3 tables behind you. The man is well-dressed, professional-looking. I took a steadying breath. I should leave. No. Martha reached across the table and gripped my hand. Don't let them chase you out of your favorite cafe. Just ignore them. I nodded, though my appetite had vanished. We continued our conversation in lowered voices, but I could feel their presence like a cold draft on my neck. 10 minutes later, a shadow fell across our table. I looked up to see Michael standing there, Jennifer and the unknown man hovering behind him. Mom. Michael's voice was overly loud, drawing attention from nearby tables. What a coincidence. We were just having lunch with Dr. Kaplan here. He gestured to the older man, who nodded politely. Michael. I kept my tone neutral. This is a surprise. Dr. Kaplan is one of the best geriatric specialists in Massachusetts. Jennifer chimed in, her voice dripping with false concern. We've been so worried about you. The implication hit me like a physical blow. I sat up straighter, meeting the doctor's eyes. I assure you, doctor, I am in excellent health and have my own physicians. Dr. Kaplan looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Wilson, your son has expressed concerns about recent behavioral changes. What behavioral changes would those be? My voice was calm, but carried clearly to the surrounding tables, where diners were now openly watching the drama unfold. My unwillingness to allow them to commit fraud using my name? My objection to having my home remortgaged without my knowledge? Michael's face flushed deep red. Mom, this isn't the place. On the contrary, I interrupted. Since you've chosen to ambush me in public, let's be public about it. Would you like me to tell Dr. Kaplan about the foreclosure notice I received? About the equity loans with my forged signature? About being deliberately excluded from my grandson's birthday party? Jennifer stepped forward, her voice honeyed for the benefit of onlookers. Eleanor, sweetie, this is exactly what we're concerned about. These delusions, these accusations. Delusions? The word hung in the air between us. I opened my purse and withdrew a folder. Are these delusions, Jennifer? I handed the folder to Dr. Kaplan. Bank statements, foreclosure notices, forensic handwriting analysis of forged signatures. My lawyer has the originals. Dr. Kaplan glanced at the documents, his expression shifting from clinical detachment to uncomfortable realization. He handed the folder back to me. Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Wilson, I think there's been a misunderstanding about why you wanted me to meet your mother. There's no misunderstanding, I said, rising from my chair. They're attempting to have me declared incompetent to prevent me from taking legal action against them. Several gasps came from nearby tables. The cafe had gone silent, all pretense of not eavesdropping abandoned. That's ridiculous, Jennifer hissed, her carefully cultivated image cracking. We're concerned about you living alone, making these wild accusations. The bank records don't lie, I said simply, and neither do I. Michael grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. Mom, you need to stop this right now. You're embarrassing yourself. Let go of me, Michael. My voice didn't waver. Not until you agree to come with us to discuss this privately. Martha stood up, her phone in hand. I've just texted Patricia Goldstein. She suggests Eleanor doesn't go anywhere with you, and that you remove your hand from her arm before the nice people at the next table call the police. Michael released me as if burned, looking around at the openly hostile faces of the other diners. The cafe owner, Rosie herself, had emerged from the kitchen and was watching with her arms crossed. Is there a problem here, Eleanor? She called. No problem, I replied, gathering my purse. My son and his wife were just leaving. Dr. Kaplan cleared his throat. I believe I should excuse myself as well. Mr. Wilson, I don't think my services will be appropriate in this situation. Jennifer's perfect facade crumbled completely. You can't just walk away. We scheduled this assessment. We need your help with her. What you need, Dr. Kaplan said quietly, is a family therapist, not a geriatric specialist, or perhaps a good attorney. He nodded politely to me and Martha, then left, the bell over the cafe door jangling with his exit. Jennifer rounded on me, her voice a venomous whisper. You think you've won something here? You have no idea what you're doing. On the contrary, I replied, for the first time in years, I know exactly what I'm doing. We'll see about that, Michael cut in. You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember who has Tommy. Remember who decides whether you ever see him again. The threat, spoken aloud in a public place, was the final confirmation of everything I'd suspected. My son was willing to use his own child as a weapon against me. I felt something shift inside me, not a breaking, but a hardening, a calcification of resolve. "Martha," I said, never taking my eyes off Michael, "would you please use your phone to record what my son just said? I believe threatening to withhold visitation rights from a grandparent as leverage in a financial dispute might interest the family court." Martha already had her phone out. "Got it." Michael paled, realizing his mistake. Jennifer grabbed his arm. "We're leaving. Now." As they stormed out, a smattering of applause broke out in the cafe. Rosie approached our table, concern etched on her face. "Eleanor, are you okay? Those two, I always thought they seemed off whenever you mentioned them. But this..." She shook her head. "Lunch is on the house today." "Thank you, Rosie. But that's not necessary." "Maybe not, but it's what I want to do." She patted my shoulder. "You stand your ground, you hear me? Don't let them push you around." After she left, Martha reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm so proud of you, Eleanor. But also worried." That was a clear threat about Tommy. The momentary triumph of standing up to Michael and Jennifer faded, replaced by a cold knot of fear. They would do it, Martha. They would keep him from me completely. "Then we need to make sure they can't," Martha said firmly. "Call Patricia as soon as we leave here. This changes things." She was right. The confrontation at Rosie's cafe had pushed our private family dispute into a new, more dangerous territory. Michael and Jennifer had shown their hand. They were willing to use Tommy as a pawn, willing to try to have me declared incompetent, willing to destroy what little remained of our family bonds. As Martha and I gathered our things to leave, my phone chimed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Grandma, it's Tommy. I'm using my friend Jake's phone. Dad and Jen took mine away. They said you're sick and I can't see you anymore. Are you okay? I miss you." I showed Martha the message, my hands trembling. "They've already started," I whispered, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. "They're already poisoning him against me." "Then we fight," Martha said, her voice stronger than I felt. "We fight for Tommy, for your rights, for the truth. This isn't just about money anymore, Eleanor. This is about saving your grandson from people who would use him as a bargaining chip." I nodded, typing a quick reply to Tommy before Michael or Jennifer could discover his borrowed phone. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Not sick at all. I love you very much, and am working on a way to see you soon. Be brave. Remember our special fishing stories." Then I deleted the message from my phone, a necessary precaution in what had just become a war. As we stepped out into the spring sunshine, I felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. Lighter for having finally confronted Michael and Jennifer publicly, heavier with the knowledge of what their retaliation would be. The battle lines had been drawn in the most public, most humiliating way possible. But unlike at Tommy's birthday party, this time I wasn't caught off guard. This time, I was ready. That night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. Tommy's text message had shaken me more deeply than the confrontation at the cafe. The thought of him confused, worried about me, believing I might be ill. It was almost more than I could bear. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. Patricia had called back immediately after hearing Martha's account of the cafe incident. Her advice was clear and urgent. "We need to file for emergency grandparent visitation rights first thing tomorrow," she'd said. "Massachusetts has strong grandparent rights laws, especially in cases where there's an established relationship with the child. And with their threat to cut off access as retaliation for your financial dispute, we have a compelling case." "Will it be enough?" I'd asked. Her hesitation told me everything. "It's a start, Eleanor. But given what they've already attempted with the geriatric specialist, we need to prepare for a difficult fight." I sipped my tea, watching a lone figure walking a dog on the street below. 3 a.m., and life continued its relentless forward motion. In the quiet darkness, I allowed myself to really see my son for the first time in years. Not as the little boy I'd raised, not as the man I wished he would be, but as the man he had actually become. Selfish, dishonest, willing to use his own son as leverage, willing to have his mother declared incompetent rather than face the consequences of his actions. When had it happened? Had I simply not noticed the gradual erosion of his character? Or had I contributed to it somehow with my endless giving, my reluctance to hold him accountable, my willingness to sacrifice everything for his comfort and convenience? The painful truth settled into my bones. I had helped create this situation, not maliciously, not consciously, but through 1,000 small surrenders, 1,000 times placing his wants above my needs, 1,000 silenced objections when I should have spoken up. I had taught him that my boundaries didn't matter, that my feelings were secondary, that I existed to serve his interests rather than as a person in my own right. And in doing so, I had failed him as surely as I had failed myself. The revelation wasn't self-pitying, it was clarifying. If I had helped create this situation through my passivity, then I could help resolve it through decisive action, not just for myself, but for Tommy. What kind of man would he become, growing up watching how his parents treated his grandmother, learning that people were disposable once they'd served their purpose, seeing love weaponized as a tool for control? I thought of James, of what he would say if he could see our family now. My practical, honorable husband who had taught Michael to fish, to change a tire, to look people in the eye when speaking to them, who had modeled respect and integrity in his every action. James wouldn't recognize our son now, but he would know what needed to be done. I set down my teacup and moved to my desk. Opening my laptop, I began to write. Not legal arguments or financial accountings, but a letter to Michael. Not the Michael who had threatened me today, but the Michael who might still exist somewhere beneath the years of entitlement and Jennifer's influence. The son who had once made me Mother's Day cards with crooked hearts and too much glitter. The boy who had cried when he found an injured bird, insisting we take it to a wildlife rehabilitator rather than let nature take its course. I wrote until dawn broke over the city skyline, pouring out decades of love, disappointment, hope, and resolve. I wrote about his father, about the values we had tried to instill, about the joy he had brought to our lives. I wrote about the pain of watching him change, of being gradually excluded from his life and Tommy's. I wrote about the foreclosure notice, the forged signatures, the attempts to have me declared incompetent, and I wrote about what would happen next, not as a threat, but as a consequence. I would fight for my rights as Tommy's grandmother. I would protect my financial interests and my reputation. I would hold him accountable for his actions, not out of vengeance, but because accountability was the last gift I could give him as his mother. I ended the letter simply. I will always love you, Michael, but I will no longer enable you. The choice of what happens next is yours. As the first rays of sunlight streamed through my window, I printed the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and set it aside. I would give it to Patricia to deliver through official channels. Michael and Jennifer had shown they couldn't be trusted with direct communication. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Susan, my sister in Florida. Despite Jennifer's lie at Tommy's party, Susan and I spoke regularly by phone, though distance and her own health issues had kept us apart physically. She answered on the third ring, her voice muzzy with sleep. Eleanor? Is everything okay? It's not even 7 here. I need your help, Sue, I said, suddenly fighting tears. It's about Michael and Tommy. It's bad. For the next hour, I told her everything. The financial deception, the birthday party humiliation, the confrontation at the cafe, the text from Tommy, the attempt to have me declared incompetent. Susan listened without interrupting, though I could hear her sharp intake of breath at several points. When I finished, the silence stretched between us for a long moment. Then Susan's voice came through the phone, strong and certain. I'm coming to Boston. Today. I'll book the first flight I can get. Sue, your arthritis. To hell with my arthritis. My sister needs me. My grandnephew needs me. Her tone brooked no argument. Besides, 2 white-haired ladies look more sympathetic in court than one. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. Susan had always been the more outspoken of us, the one who charged into battles while I tried to make peace. Having her beside me would strengthen my resolve when the inevitable moments of doubt came. Thank you, I said simply. Don't thank me yet. Wait until I give that son of yours a piece of my mind. She paused. And, Eleanor, you're doing the right thing. The hard thing, but the right thing. After hanging up, I took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the tension of the previous day. As I dressed in a simple blue blouse and navy slacks, I caught my reflection in the mirror and was startled by what I saw. The woman looking back at me wasn't broken or defeated. Her eyes were clear, her posture straight-backed Eleanor, as James had called me. Something had shifted overnight. a fundamental realignment of my sense of self. I was no longer just Michael's mother, or Tommy's grandmother, or James's widow. I was Eleanor Wilson, a woman reclaiming her power after decades of giving it away piece by piece. My phone rang. Patricia, confirming our meeting at the courthouse to file the emergency grandparent visitation petition. "I'll pick you up in 30 minutes, she said. "Bring any photographs, cards, evidence of your relationship with Tommy, anything that documents your regular contact and close bond." I assembled an album of photos, birthday cards Tommy had made me, text messages I'd saved from happier times. As I gathered these mementos, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about money or property, or even my relationship with Michael anymore. This was about Tommy, about ensuring that he grew up knowing his grandmother, knowing his family history, knowing that love shouldn't come with conditions or be used as leverage. When Patricia's car pulled up outside my building, I was ready. The letter to Michael sat on my desk, waiting to be delivered. Susan was booking her flight from Florida. The photos and cards documenting my relationship with Tommy were packed in a neat portfolio. For the first time since receiving that foreclosure notice, I felt something like hope. Not that everything would be easily resolved, but that I had the strength to face whatever came next. As I locked my apartment door behind me, I whispered a promise to myself, to James's memory, and to Tommy. I will not bend this time. Not for anything. Not for anyone. The emergency grandparent visitation hearing was set for the following Monday, giving Michael and Jennifer's attorney, a slick corporate lawyer named Randall Hargrove, less than a week to prepare their defense. Patricia seemed pleased by the quick scheduling. "Judge Sonia Martinez," she'd said with satisfaction after we'd filed the paperwork. "She's fair, but takes grandparent rights very seriously. Good draw for us." Susan arrived that evening, her face lined with travel fatigue, but her eyes bright with determination. After settling her in my guest room, we stayed up late strategizing, going over documents, preparing for the battle ahead. "There's something I don't understand," Susan said, sorting through the financial records spread across my dining table. "Where did all the money go? The equity loans, the mortgage payments they skipped. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars." It was a question that had been nagging at me as well. Jennifer's designer clothes and their lavish parties couldn't account for such large sums. The forensic accountant Patricia had hired was still working on tracing the money, but his preliminary report had shown numerous large withdrawals to accounts he hadn't yet been able to identify. "Maybe gambling debts?" Susan suggested. "Or some investment scheme gone wrong?" I shook my head. Michael was always cautious with money. Too cautious, if anything. And Jennifer is calculating, not reckless. "Well, people change," Susan sighed. "Your sweet little boy certainly did." The next morning, I had a scheduled appointment with the forensic accountant, Harold Weinstein, at Patricia's office. Susan insisted on accompanying me, though I warned her it would likely be dry and technical. "I was an accountant for 30 years, Ellie," she reminded me. "Numbers are my second language." Harold was waiting for us, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a distracted air. But his vague demeanor vanished the moment he opened his laptop and began taking us through his findings. "I've managed to trace about 60% of the missing funds," he began, turning the screen so we could see the spreadsheet he'd prepared. "And I've found something unusual." He pointed to a series of large transfers. $15,000 here, $25,000 there, adding up to nearly $100,000, all going to an LLC called Oceanic Ventures. "At first glance, it appears to be an investment company," Harold continued. "But when I dug deeper, I found that Oceanic Ventures was incorporated just 18 months ago. It has no website, no physical address except a P.O. box, and..." He paused for effect. "Only one listed officer, Jennifer Wilson. Jennifer created a shell company?" Susan leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Why? That's where it gets interesting," Harold said, clicking to a new document. "Oceanic Ventures has been making regular payments to another entity, Lakeside Properties LLC, and Lakeside Properties owns a vacation home on Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, purchased 14 months ago for $450,000. My mind raced to catch up. "Are you saying Jennifer and Michael bought a vacation home using the equity from my house? Without telling me?" "Not exactly," Harold replied, adjusting his glasses. "The property isn't in either of their names. Lakeside Properties' sole officer is listed as..." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "A Richard Carson." The name hit me like a physical blow. I felt the blood drain from my face. Richard Carson? Are you certain? Susan looked between us, confused. Who's Richard Carson? Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, I said quietly. From before she met Michael. He's a real estate developer. Michael always said Jennifer remained friends with him, but I couldn't finish the sentence. The implications too painful to voice. Harold cleared his throat. There's more. I found evidence of regular transfers from Jennifer's personal account to a joint account held by Jennifer Wilson and Richard Carson. Small amounts, $2,000 or $3,000 at a time, dating back nearly 3 years. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Susan grabbed my hand, anchoring me. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Patricia asked Harold, her voice careful, neutral. He spread his hands. I'm just following the money, Ms. Goldstein. But in my experience, people don't usually funnel hundreds of thousands of dollars to their exes without some ongoing connection. The implication hung in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. Jennifer and Richard Carson, a secret vacation home, years of financial transfers. I need proof, I said finally. Not just financial records. If what we're all thinking is true, I need absolute confirmation before I bring this to Michael. Patricia and Harold exchanged glances. That would go beyond financial forensics, Harold said carefully. You'd need a private investigator. Patricia finished for him. I know someone discreet, but Eleanor, are you sure? This could get ugly very quickly. Was I sure? Did I want to uncover evidence that might destroy what little remained of my relationship with my son? That might blow his marriage apart? That would inevitably affect Tommy? But then I thought of the foreclosure notice, the forged signatures, the attempt to have me declared incompetent, the threat to keep Tommy from me. I'm sure, I said firmly. Whatever the truth is, I need to know it. Patricia made a call from her office, speaking in low tones. When she hung up, she said, Connor Riley can start today. He's ex-police, very thorough, very discreet, but his services aren't cheap. I can cover it, Susan interjected before I could speak. Consider it my contribution to Operation Take Down the Gold Digger. Despite everything, I had to smile at my sister's characteristic bluntness. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Sue. We don't know for certain. Oh, please, she scoffed. Shell companies? Secret vacation homes with the ex? Regular payments? If it walks like an affair and quacks like an affair, Patricia raised a hand. Let's wait for Connor's report before jumping to conclusions. In the meantime, we should continue preparing for Monday's hearing. Regardless of Jennifer's personal situation, our priority is securing your legal right to see Tommy. We spent the rest of the morning reviewing my documented history with Tommy. Photographs, text messages, school events I'd attended. Patricia was building a case that I had been an integral part of his life until recently, that the sudden cutoff was not in his best interest, and that it was clearly retaliatory, rather than based on any legitimate concern for his welfare. By the time we left Patricia's office, I felt emotionally exhausted but resolute. Whatever Connor discovered about Jennifer and Richard Carson would be one more piece of leverage, one more way to protect myself and my relationship with Tommy. Susan insisted on taking me to lunch at a small French bistro near Patricia's office. You need to keep up your strength, she declared. Can't fight battles on an empty stomach. As we waited for our food, Susan studied me with the particular scrutiny only a sister can employ. You know what's different about you? She said finally. Besides the dark circles under my eyes and the constant anxiety, you're not making excuses for him anymore. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Every time we talked about Michael and Jennifer these past few years, you always had a reason why they couldn't visit, couldn't call, couldn't include you. You were always defending them, even when it was clear they were treating you badly. I hadn't realized it, but she was right. How many times had I told myself they were just busy? That Jennifer's coldness was just her way? That Michael's increasing distance was normal for an adult son with his own family? I think I was afraid, I admitted. Afraid that if I acknowledged how things really were, I'd have to do something about it. And doing something might mean losing them completely. And now? Susan raised an eyebrow. Now I see that I was losing them anyway. Just slowly, painfully, one exclusion at a time. At least this way, I keep my self-respect. Our food arrived, temporarily halting the conversation. As we ate, my phone chimed with a text message from Patricia. Connor is already on the job. He's heading to Lake Winnipesaukee today. Says Jennifer's car was spotted on traffic cameras heading north this morning. On a day she told Michael's office she was home with a migraine. I showed the message to Susan, whose eyes widened. Well, that was fast. Too fast to mean anything, I cautioned. She could be shopping, visiting a friend, anything. Uh-huh, Susan said skeptically. And I'm the Queen of England. After lunch, we returned to my apartment to find a package waiting. The personal items I'd requested from the safe deposit box James and I had maintained for decades. The bank had been reluctant to send them via courier, but Patricia's formal letter had smoothed the way. I opened the package with trembling fingers, Susan watching curiously over my shoulder. Inside was a small leather pouch containing items I hadn't looked at in years. My grandmother's sapphire ring that we'd redeemed from the pawn shop after James found work again, the pocket watch that had belonged to James's father, a set of rare coins James had collected, and most importantly, a sealed envelope with, "For Michael in case," written on it in James' precise handwriting. James had placed these items in the safe deposit box a month before his death, already sick with the cancer that would take him within a year. Insurance, he'd called it, refusing to elaborate further. I'd respected his privacy, assuming it contained his private thoughts for our son. Now, 9 years later, I carefully opened the envelope, feeling only slightly guilty for violating James's intention that Michael should be the recipient. Inside was a letter and a second, smaller envelope. I unfolded the letter, recognizing James's handwriting immediately. "Michael," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and your mother has decided you need to know something I've kept from both of you." As I read the letter, my hands began to shake so violently that Susan had to take it from me to continue reading aloud. During the financial crisis of 2008, when my investments took a severe hit, I made a desperate decision. I borrowed money from someone I shouldn't have, a former client with ties to organized crime. When I couldn't repay the loan, he threatened you and your mother. I went to the FBI and agreed to testify against him and his associates in exchange for protection. We didn't go into witness protection. I couldn't bear to take your mother away from her home and family, but the FBI helped me create a new financial identity, transfer our assets, and ensure our safety. The man I testified against went to prison for 20 years. He'll be eligible for parole in 2028. The second envelope contains documentation of everything: FBI contacts, case numbers, the new accounts I established. I'm trusting you to protect your mother if I'm not here when this man is released. She knows nothing of this. I couldn't bear for her to live with that fear. I'm sorry for the secrets, son. I did what I had to do to keep our family safe. I hope you never need this information, but if you do, use it wisely. And remember, your first duty is to protect your mother, who has given everything for you. With love and trust, Dad." Susan's voice faltered on the last words. I sat frozen, trying to absorb this revelation. James, my straightforward, honest James, had kept this enormous secret from me for years, had faced this danger alone to protect me from worry. "Oh, James," I whispered, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "Why didn't you tell me?" Susan opened the second envelope with careful fingers. Inside were exactly what James had described: FBI contact information, case files, account numbers for assets I'd never known existed. "Eleanor," she said slowly, "do you realize what this means? There may be accounts, investments that Michael and Jennifer know nothing about, assets that are legally yours." I barely heard her, still reeling from the knowledge that James had been carrying such a burden alone, that he had faced danger and fear without sharing it with me, thinking he was protecting me. But Susan was already on her phone, calling Patricia. "We've found something," she said when the lawyer answered. "Something big. Hidden assets. James's letter. The FBI. You need to see this right away." As she filled Patricia in, I sat with James's letter in my lap, running my fingers over his familiar handwriting. Even from beyond the grave, he was still watching over me, still providing for me. The thought brought fresh tears, but also a sense of his presence, his strength. He had kept secrets to protect me. Now I would use those secrets to protect myself, to protect Tommy, to fight for what was right. By the time Patricia arrived at my apartment an hour later, I had regained my composure. Together we examined the documents James had left, tracing accounts, calculating values. According to our preliminary estimates, there could be well over $1 million in investments and insurance policies that had matured since James's death, funds that were legally mine, that Michael and Jennifer had no knowledge of, that could completely change the balance of power in our conflict. As Patricia was preparing to leave with copies of everything, my phone chimed with another text. From Connor Riley this time. Surveillance established at Lake Winnipesaukee property. Jennifer Wilson's car and driveway. Richard Carson arrived 30 minutes later. Photographic evidence being compiled. We'll report fully tomorrow. I showed the message to Patricia and Susan. A strange calm settling over me. The final pieces were falling into place. Jennifer's betrayal of Michael. James's secret provision for my future. The leverage I would need to protect myself and my relationship with Tommy. What do we do now? Susan asked, looking between Patricia and me. Now, I said with newfound clarity. We prepare for war. Over the next 3 days, we built our case methodically, piece by piece. Connor Riley delivered his report and photographic evidence. Dozens of images showing Jennifer and Richard Carson at the lakeside property, embracing, kissing, clearly involved in an affair that had been going on for years. There were photos of them on the dock, in the garden, entering the house with overnight bags. They're not even being particularly careful, Connor noted when he presented his findings in Patricia's office. They arrive in separate cars, but within minutes of each other. Neighbors know them as a couple, the Carsons, they call themselves. They've attended local events together. This isn't a casual fling. It's essentially a second life. Patricia nodded, organizing the photos into a folder. And you're certain Michael has no knowledge of this? Based on my surveillance of both properties and Michael's work schedule, it's highly unlikely, Connor confirmed. Jennifer only visits the lake house on days when Michael is working. She maintains an elaborate alibi system. Fake appointments, supposed shopping trips, visits to friends who are complicit in covering for her. I felt a surge of maternal pain for my son, despite everything. He might have changed, might have treated me poorly, might have even participated in financial fraud, but he didn't deserve this level of betrayal from his wife. I don't want to destroy him with this, I told Patricia quietly. I just want to protect myself and my relationship with Tommy. Unfortunately, Eleanor, those two objectives may be inseparable at this point, Patricia replied. But, she added, seeing my expression, we can be strategic about how and when this information comes to light. The forensic accountant, meanwhile, had traced nearly all the missing funds by now. The picture he painted was damning. Jennifer had systematically siphoned money from the fraudulent equity loans into accounts she controlled, ultimately funneling much of it to the lake house and to Richard Carson's business ventures. Michael had benefited from some of the stolen funds, living beyond his means in the house I owned, but he appeared to be unaware of the extent of Jennifer's deception or her relationship with Carson. In a way, he's as much a victim as you are, Harold observed, though a willfully blind one. The most significant development, however, came from Patricia's investigation into James's hidden assets. Working with the FBI contacts listed in his letter, she had confirmed the existence of investment accounts, insurance policies, and even a small property in Maine that James had purchased through his protected identity. The total value, conservatively estimated, is just over $1.5 million, Patricia announced during our strategy session on Sunday afternoon, the day before the grandparent visitation hearing. And it's all indisputably yours, Eleanor. Michael has no claim to any of it. Susan whistled softly. James, you sly fox. Making sure Eleanor would be taken care of no matter what. I fingered the sapphire ring I'd begun wearing again, thinking of my practical, protective husband, who had planned so carefully for a future without him. He knew Michael better than I allowed myself to, I said quietly. He saw the changes happening, saw Jennifer's influence. No, the question now, Patricia said, bringing us back to the matter at hand, is how to use these resources strategically in your legal battles. The grandparent visitation hearing tomorrow is just the beginning. We still have the foreclosure issue, the fraudulent loans, and potentially criminal charges for the forgery to deal with. We spent the rest of the afternoon outlining our strategy, not just for the immediate hearing, but for the longer war ahead. Patricia was careful to frame everything in terms of my goals. Securing regular visitation with Tommy, protecting myself financially, and, if possible, helping Michael see the truth about Jennifer without destroying him in the process. The judge will likely grant temporary visitation rights while the broader case is pending, Patricia explained. Massachusetts law is relatively strong on grandparent rights, especially when there's been a pattern of regular contact followed by a sudden, retaliatory cutoff. And if Michael and Jennifer refuse to comply? Susan asked. Then they'll be in contempt of court, Patricia said simply. which would significantly strengthen our position in the other legal matters. By the time Patricia left, darkness had fallen over Boston. Susan insisted on cooking dinner, claiming the activity would calm her nerves. As she clattered around my kitchen, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on, thinking about the hearing tomorrow and all that would follow. My phone buzzed with a text message. Michael, for the first time since the confrontation at the cafe. Mom, this has gone far enough. Drop the court case tomorrow. We can work this out as a family. Please don't do this to Tommy. The emotional manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. After a moment's reflection, I typed back, I'll see you in court, Michael. This isn't about hurting Tommy. It's about ensuring he continues to have his grandmother in his life. I'm open to talking after the hearing. His response came quickly. Jennifer is prepared to testify about your mental state. It won't be pretty. Last chance. So they were sticking with the unstable elderly woman narrative, despite the geriatric specialist having withdrawn his support. I showed the messages to Susan, who had emerged from the kitchen wiping her hands on a dish towel. Threats now, she observed. They must be getting desperate. They don't know what we know, I replied, feeling strangely calm. They think I'm just a foolish old woman they can intimidate. Their mistake, Susan said with grim satisfaction, returning to her cooking. I spent a restless night, waking frequently, rehearsing what I would say in court, imagining various scenarios. By dawn, I was exhausted but resolved. I dressed with particular care, a conservative navy suit that had been a favorite of James, pearl earrings he had given me for our 30th anniversary, my hair freshly styled by Susan's steady hands. You look formidable, Susan approved, herself elegant in a gray pantsuit, like a woman who knows exactly what she's worth. Patricia picked us up precisely at 8:30. The hearing was scheduled for 9:15, but she wanted us there early to prepare and observe Michael and Jennifer's arrival. Body language can tell us a lot about their strategy, she explained as we drove through the morning traffic. Whether they arrive together or separately, how they interact, whether they seem confident or nervous. The courthouse was a grand old building in downtown Boston, all marble and echoing hallways. Patricia guided us to a bench near the appropriate courtroom, positioning us so we could observe the main entrance without being immediately visible. Michael and Jennifer arrived at 9:05, cutting it close. They entered separately, Michael first, then Jennifer a minute later, accompanied by their attorney, Randall Hargrove. They didn't speak to each other, didn't even make eye contact. I noted with interest that Jennifer looked impeccable as always, but Michael appeared haggard, his suit slightly rumpled, dark circles under his eyes. Trouble in paradise? Susan murmured beside me. Focus, Patricia cautioned quietly. Remember, today is just about Tommy and your right to see him. Everything else comes later. At 9:15 precisely, the bailiff called our case. We filed into the courtroom, taking our places at one table while Michael, Jennifer, and Hargrove sat at the other. I kept my eyes forward, not looking directly at them, though I was acutely aware of Michael's gaze. Judge Martinez entered, a small, compact woman with silver-streaked black hair and intelligent eyes. After the formalities, she addressed the attorneys. This is a petition for emergency grandparent visitation rights, she stated, reviewing the file before her. Ms. Goldstein, please present your case. Patricia rose, outlining our position concisely. My long-established relationship with Tommy, the sudden cutoff following my discovery of financial improprieties, the explicit threat made by Michael that I would never see Tommy again if I pursued legal action regarding the forged documents and missed mortgage payments. She presented the photographs, the cards, the text messages documenting my relationship with Tommy. She played Martha's recording from the cafe confrontation, where Michael had clearly threatened to withhold Tommy as leverage. She emphasized Tommy's own text message to me, sent secretly from a friend's phone after his parents had taken his device away and told him I was sick. Your Honor, this is a clear case of retaliatory action designed to punish Mrs. Wilson for protecting her financial interests, Patricia concluded. Tommy Wilson has a close, loving relationship with his grandmother that should be preserved and protected, regardless of the ongoing disputes between the adults in his life. Judge Martinez nodded, then turned to Hargrove. Counsel? Randall Hargrove stood, straightening his expensive tie. Your Honor, the Wilsons have legitimate concerns about Mrs. Eleanor Wilson's mental state and stability. Her accusations of financial misconduct are unfounded and part of a pattern of increasingly paranoid behavior. They believe limited contact is in Tommy's best interest until Mrs. Wilson receives appropriate medical evaluation and treatment. Do you have documentation of these concerns from qualified medical professionals? Judge Martinez asked, peering over her reading glasses. Hargrove hesitated. We attempted to arrange an evaluation, Your Honor, but Mrs. Wilson refused to cooperate. Attempted how exactly? The judge pressed. Mrs. Wilson's son arranged for her to meet with a geriatric specialist, Dr. Kaplan, but the meeting was unproductive. Patricia stood. Your Honor, if I may, this arranged meeting was an ambush at a public restaurant, without prior notice or consent. Dr. Kaplan withdrew his participation when he realized the circumstances and reviewed evidence of the financial issues Mrs. Wilson had uncovered. He is prepared to testify to that effect if necessary. Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow at Hargrove. Is that accurate, counsel? The circumstances of the meeting are not the issue, Your Honor. Hargrove deflected. The issue is Mrs. Wilson's allegations of fraud and forgery without evidence. I have the evidence right here, Your Honor. Patricia interrupted, producing the folder with the forensic handwriting analysis and bank statements, including expert confirmation that Mrs. Wilson's signatures were forged on multiple loan documents. As the judge reviewed these documents, I finally allowed myself to look directly at Michael. He was staring at the table, shoulders hunched, while Jennifer whispered urgently to Hargrove. I caught his eye briefly, and what I saw surprised me. Not anger or defiance, but confusion and what looked like fear. He doesn't know, I realized suddenly. He doesn't know about Jennifer and Richard Carson. He doesn't know about the lake house, about where the money really went. The hearing continued for another hour, with both sides presenting arguments and evidence. Throughout, I maintained my composure, speaking clearly and confidently when asked direct questions by the judge, avoiding emotional outbursts despite Jennifer's thinly veiled accusations about my mental state. Finally, Judge Martinez closed her folder and looked at all of us over her glasses. I've heard enough, she said firmly. Based on the evidence presented, I am granting Mrs. Eleanor Wilson temporary visitation rights with her grandson, Tommy Wilson, to take place every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., beginning this coming weekend. These visits will occur without supervision and without the presence of either parent. This arrangement will continue until the full hearing on permanent grandparent visitation rights, scheduled for 6 weeks from today. I felt a wave of relief so profound I nearly wept. Beside me, Susan squeezed my hand under the table. Furthermore, Judge Martinez continued, I am issuing an order prohibiting either party from disparaging the other to the child or using the child as leverage in their ongoing disputes. Any violation of this order will be considered contempt of court. She fixed Michael and Jennifer with a stern look. Am I understood? Both nodded, Michael looking relieved, Jennifer seething. Then we're adjourned. Full written order to follow. As we gathered our things to leave, Michael approached our table, ignoring Patricia's warning look. Mom, he said quietly, can we talk? Privately? I studied my son's face, the face I'd loved since the moment I first held him, now lined with stress and uncertainty. Not today, Michael. I'll see you Saturday when I pick up Tommy. Mom, please. Michael, I cut him off gently. There's a lot you don't know yet. A lot we need to discuss. But not here. Not now. And not without my attorney present. His face fell, but he nodded. I never wanted it to come to this. Neither did I replied truthfully. But here we are. Jennifer appeared at his elbow, tugging him away, shooting me a venomous look. As they left, Patricia leaned close to me. Round one to us, she murmured. But the war is just beginning. Outside the courthouse, standing in the bright spring sunshine, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I would see Tommy on Saturday. I had legal protection now, and I had evidence, resources, and allies that Michael and Jennifer knew nothing about yet. What's next? Susan asked as we descended the courthouse steps. Next, I said, my resolve hardening. We show them exactly who they've been underestimating. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. A perfect New England spring day. I woke early, too excited and nervous to sleep. Today I would see Tommy for the first time since his birthday party, our first court-ordered visitation. I'd spent hours planning the day, wanting it to be special but not overly indulgent, meaningful without being obviously orchestrated to win his favor. Susan helped me prepare a picnic basket. Tommy's favorites, including fried chicken, potato salad, and chocolate chip cookies I'd baked myself. I'd also packed fishing gear, planning to take him to a small pond in the Boston Common where children could fish, catch, and release. It would be a chance to tell him stories about his grandfather, to maintain that connection to his family history. "Are you sure you don't want me to come along?" Susan asked as I got ready to leave. "I could stay in the background, just in case Jennifer tries something." I shook my head. The judge was clear, just Tommy and me. Besides, I want him to feel this is normal, not that he's under observation. At precisely 10 a.m., I pulled up in front of Michael and Jennifer's house. My house, legally speaking. Tommy was waiting on the porch, backpack in hand, bouncing with barely contained energy. Michael stood behind him, looking uncomfortable. There was no sign of Jennifer. "Grandma!" Tommy flew down the steps and into my arms the moment I stepped out of the car. "Hello, sweetheart." I hugged him tight, surprised at how much he seemed to have grown just in the week since his birthday. "I've missed you so much." "Me too," he whispered against my shoulder. "Dad said you're not sick anymore." I pulled back to look into his face, James's eyes looking back at me. "I was never sick, Tommy. That was a misunderstanding." Michael approached slowly, hands in his pockets. "He has his phone. Call if you need anything. He needs to be back by 4. "We'll have a wonderful time," I assured both of them. "See you at 4, exactly as the judge ordered." A flash of something, embarrassment, regret, crossed Michael's face at the mention of the court order, but he just nodded and helped Tommy into my car. "Bye, Dad," Tommy called cheerfully, showing none of the tension the adults felt. "Grandma's taking me fishing!" As we drove away, I watched Michael in the rearview mirror, standing alone in front of the too large house built on lies and stolen money. Despite everything, my heart ached for him. The day with Tommy was perfect, sunlit and joyful. We fished in the morning, though we caught nothing but weeds and an old boot, which Tommy found hilarious. We had our picnic under a sprawling oak tree, and I told him stories about his grandfather, how James had taught Michael to fish in the same pond, how he'd collected those antique lures Tommy had always admired in my apartment, how he would have adored his grandson. "I wish I remembered him better," Tommy said, lying on his back looking up at the leaves. "I was only, 3 when he died?" "Almost 4, I confirmed. "But he loved you so much. He called you his little fisherman." "Really?" Tommy's face lit up. "Dad never told me that. There's a lot about your grandfather I can tell you," I said carefully. "Anytime you want to know." We spent the afternoon at the Museum of Science, one of Tommy's favorite places. As we examined dinosaur bones and played with interactive exhibits, I was careful not to mention the ongoing conflict with his parents, not to ask leading questions about what was happening at home. Judge Martinez had been very clear about not putting Tommy in the middle, and I intended to honor that, whatever Jennifer and Michael might be doing. But as we were driving back, Tommy volunteered something unprompted. "Mom and Dad are fighting a lot," he said, looking out the window. "They think I don't hear them, but I do." I kept my eyes on the road, my tone neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that, sweetheart. That must be hard for you." He nodded. "Mom's gone a lot. Dad works all the time. They yell about money." He turned to look at me. "Is that why they said you were sick? Because of money?" So perceptive, this child. So aware of the currents running beneath the surface of his family. "It's complicated, Tommy," I said carefully. "Grown-ups sometimes disagree about important things, but nothing that's happening is your fault, and we all love you very much." "Even Mom?" he asked, his voice smaller suddenly. "She doesn't seem to like anyone lately, not even Dad." I chose my words with extreme care. "Your mother is going through a difficult time, I think, but I'm sure she loves you." He seemed satisfied with this, and changed the subject to a video game he was playing, but his words stayed with me as we drove back to Lexington. When we pulled up to the house at exactly 4 p.m., the scene was very different from the morning. Both Michael and Jennifer were waiting on the porch, but they stood apart, tension visible in their stiff postures. And there was a third person, Randall Hargrove, their attorney. "Why is that man here?" Tommy asked, frowning. "He's a lawyer who works with your parents," I explained, keeping my voice light. "Nothing for you to worry about." But inside, alarm bells were ringing. Why would they have their attorney present for a simple custody handover? Tommy ran ahead while I collected the picnic basket and fishing gear from the trunk. By the time I approached the porch, he was already inside, leaving me to face Michael, Jennifer, and Hargrove alone. "Mrs. Wilson," Hargrove greeted me with professional coolness. "I trust the visitation went well?" "Perfectly," I replied, matching his tone. "Though I'm curious why legal counsel is necessary for a simple drop-off." "We've had some developments," Michael said, not quite meeting my eyes. Randall thought it best if he was present. Jennifer hadn't spoken. Her arms crossed tightly across her chest, her expression unreadable. She was dressed impeccably as always, but there was something brittle about her today, a tautness that hadn't been there before. "Developments?" I repeated. Hargrove cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside." The living room of the house I legally owned but had rarely been invited to enter was immaculate, as always. Tommy was nowhere to be seen. Sent upstairs, I assumed. "Mrs. Wilson," Hargrove began, once we were all seated, "my clients have been made aware of certain allegations you may be preparing to make regarding Mrs. Wilson's personal affairs. Before this goes any further, they wanted to offer a settlement, so they knew, or at least Jennifer knew that I knew about Richard Carson, about the lake house, about the affair." I glanced at Michael, whose expression remained confused and troubled. No, I realized. She hadn't told him yet. She was trying to head off the revelation. "What sort of settlement?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Hargrove outlined the terms. I would transfer ownership of the house to Michael and Jennifer, forgive the fraudulent loans, drop any claims of forgery or financial misconduct, and agree to supervised visitation with Tommy. In exchange, they would pay me $50,000 and not contest the limited grandparent visitation. "That's your idea of a fair settlement?" I couldn't help the incredulous note in my voice. "After everything that's been taken from me already?" Jennifer spoke for the first time, her voice tight with controlled fury. "It's more than generous considering the alternatives." "And what alternatives would those be, Jennifer?" I asked, meeting her gaze directly. "Public exposure? Criminal charges? Divorce?" Michael's head snapped up, his confusion evident. "What? What are you talking about, Mom?" Hargrove tried to intervene. "Mrs. Wilson, making unfounded accusations." "They're not unfounded, Mr. Hargrove, as you well know," I interrupted. "I have documented evidence of Mrs. Jennifer Wilson's multi-year affair with Richard Carson, including the lakefront property they purchased together, using funds fraudulently obtained through equity loans on my house. I have photographs, financial records, and witness statements. Would you like me to continue?" The room fell absolutely silent. Michael stared at me, then at Jennifer, whose face had drained of all color. "What is she talking about?" Michael asked her, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's confused," Jennifer said quickly. "She's making things up to turn you against me." "Am I?" I reached into my purse and withdrew a single photograph, one of dozens Connor Riley had provided, showing Jennifer and Richard Carson embracing on the dock of the lake house. I handed it to Michael, whose hands trembled as he took it. "When?" he started, then stopped, swallowing hard. "When was this taken?" "Last week," I said gently. "While Jennifer told you she was visiting her mother in Connecticut. The house is at Lake Winnipesaukee. They've owned it together for 14 months, paid for with money from the equity loans with my forged signature." Michael's face went through a rapid sequence of emotions. Shock, disbelief, dawning comprehension, and finally, a devastating hurt that made me ache for him, despite everything he had done. "Is this true?" he asked Jennifer, his voice breaking. Her mask finally cracked. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," she said, not denying it. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way." Hargrove, seeing his settlement opportunity disintegrating, attempted to regain control. "Regardless of personal issues between Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, the settlement offer is rejected," I said firmly. "My counteroffer is this. I will retain ownership of this house. Michael and Tommy may continue living here, with reasonable rent payments that will go into a trust for Tommy's education. Jennifer will vacate the premises immediately. I will not press criminal charges for the forgery if all stolen funds are repaid, with interest. And I will have regular, unsupervised visitation with my grandson." "You can't dictate terms like that," Jennifer spat, her composure completely gone now. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. On the contrary," I cut her off, "I know exactly who I'm dealing with. A woman who stole from her mother-in-law, who betrayed her husband, who used her child as emotional leverage, who attempted to have me declared incompetent rather than face the consequences of her actions. Michael stood suddenly, his face ashen. I need a minute. He walked out of the room, the photograph still clutched in his hand. You've ruined everything, Jennifer hissed at me once he was gone. Are you happy now? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a strange mixture of pity and resolve. This isn't about happiness, Jennifer. It's about truth. It's about consequences. Mrs. Wilson, Hargrove interjected. Perhaps we should continue this discussion after everyone has had time to process. A sudden crash from upstairs interrupted him. The sound of breaking glass, followed by a child's frightened cry. Tommy! I was on my feet instantly, rushing toward the stairs with Jennifer and Hargrove right behind me. We found Michael in his and Jennifer's bedroom, a shattered photo frame on the floor, Tommy cowering in the doorway. Michael was pulling open drawers, flinging clothes onto the bed. Dad? Tommy's voice quavered. What are you doing? Michael turned, seeing Tommy for the first time. His expression softened immediately. It's okay, buddy. I need to check something. I went to Tommy, pulling him gently away from the doorway. Let's give your dad some space, sweetheart. Why don't we go downstairs and make some hot chocolate? What's happening? Tommy whispered as I led him down the stairs. Why is Dad throwing Mom's things? Your parents are having a disagreement, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and reassuring. It's going to be okay, but they need some time to sort things out. In the kitchen, I busied myself making hot chocolate, trying to create a bubble of normalcy for Tommy amidst the chaos. From upstairs came the sounds of raised voices, Michael's deep and broken, Jennifer's high and defensive. Hargrove had wisely remained downstairs, sitting awkwardly in the living room, pretending not to hear the marital implosion happening above. Tommy sipped his hot chocolate, his eyes large and worried. Are Mom and Dad going to get divorced? The question caught me off guard. I don't know, sweetheart. Whatever happens, both your parents love you very much. But if they do, he persisted, where will I live? Who will I stay with? That would be for your parents to decide, I said carefully. But you will always have places where you're loved and wanted. Always. The shouting upstairs had stopped. A door slammed, then another. Michael appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face haggard but composed for Tommy's sake. Hey, buddy, he said, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Grandma makes the best hot chocolate, doesn't she? Tommy nodded, watching his father warily. Mom's going to stay somewhere else for a while, Michael continued, sitting down at the table. Just until we figure some things out. It's nothing for you to worry about. Is it because of the lake house? Tommy asked, surprising all of us. The one Mom goes to when she says she's visiting Grandma Rose? The simple question, delivered with a child's innocent directness, confirmed everything. Michael closed his eyes briefly, a spasm of pain crossing his face. You knew? He asked softly. Tommy shrugged. I heard her on the phone sometimes, talking about the lake. And once I saw pictures on her computer when she left it open. The realization that even Tommy had known, or at least suspected, something Michael had been blind to seemed to hit my son like a physical blow. He reached out and pulled Tommy into a fierce hug. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Dad, Tommy said, patting Michael's back with the instinctive compassion of children. Don't be sad. Over Tommy's shoulder, Michael's eyes met mine, wounded, apologetic, asking for something I wasn't sure I could give yet. Forgiveness. I nodded slightly, acknowledging the unspoken request without fully granting it. There would be time for that conversation. For reconciliation, perhaps. But not today. Today was about the painful but necessary dismantling of lies. About Tommy's well-being. About first steps toward whatever came next. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, a suitcase in hand. She had composed herself, though her eyes were red-rimmed. I'm leaving, she announced, her voice brittle. Michael and I need some time apart. Tommy slipped from his father's embrace and went to her, uncertain. Where are you going, Mom? For a moment, Jennifer's mask slipped, genuine pain showing through as she knelt to Tommy's level. Just to a friend's house for a while. I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Okay, Tommy said, allowing her to hug him briefly. She straightened, avoiding everyone's eyes. Randall and I will be in touch about the legal matters. And with that, she was gone, the front door closing firmly behind her and Hargrove. The three of us, Michael, Tommy, and I, remained in the kitchen, an impromptu family unit bound by broken trust and uncertain futures. "What happens now?" Michael asked quietly, once Tommy had gone upstairs to play. I looked at my son, truly looked at him, seeing both the man he had become and the boy he had been. "That depends on you, Michael, on what kind of man, what kind of father you choose to be going forward." He nodded, accepting the challenge in my words. "I've made terrible mistakes. With you, with Tommy, with everything." "Yes," I agreed, not sugarcoating it. "But mistakes can be acknowledged. Damage can be repaired. Not easily, not quickly, but it can be done." "Will you help me?" he asked, his voice catching. "I don't deserve it, I know, but you're my son," I said simply. "That hasn't changed, even when everything else has." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a promise that things would ever be the same between us, but it was a beginning, a fragile bridge across the chasm that had opened in our family, a first step toward whatever came next. As the afternoon light slanted through the kitchen windows, I thought of James, of the secrets he had kept to protect me, of the provisions he had made for just such a crisis. I thought of Susan, waiting at my apartment for news. I thought of Tommy upstairs, his young life upended by adult failures and deceptions. And I thought of myself, not just as Michael's mother or Tommy's grandmother or James's widow, but as Eleanor Wilson, a woman who had finally reclaimed her voice, her dignity, her place in her own life. Whatever came next would not be easy. There would be legal battles, emotional reckonings, difficult conversations. But for the first time in years, I was facing the future on my own terms, straight-backed and clear-eyed, just as James had always known I could be. 1 year later, I sat on the dock of James' fishing cabin in the Adirondacks, watching Tommy cast his line into the still water. The afternoon sun glinted off the lake, creating a mosaic of light and shadow that reminded me of how life itself unfolds, brightness and darkness, joy and sorrow, all part of the same tapestry. "Grandma, look!" Tommy's excited voice pulled me from my reverie. His fishing rod was bent, the line taut. "I think I got one." I moved to his side, steadying him as he reeled in his catch, a respectable smallmouth bass that thrashed and glistened in the sunlight. "Well done." I helped him unhook the fish, showing him how to hold it properly for a quick photograph before releasing it back into the lake. "Your grandfather would be so proud. Do you think he can see us?" Tommy asked, watching the fish disappear beneath the water's surface. "From heaven or wherever?" "I like to think so," I said, settling back onto the weathered wooden bench. At 9 years old, Tommy was full of such questions, about life and death, about family and belonging, about the changes that had reshaped his world over the past year. So much had happened since that confrontation in the kitchen, when Jennifer had walked out, and Michael had begun the painful process of facing the truth. The legal battles had been complex, but ultimately resolved without the public exposure I had initially feared might be necessary. Jennifer had fought briefly for custody of Tommy, but when presented with the full evidence of her affair and financial misconduct, she had agreed to a settlement. Joint legal custody with primary physical custody going to Michael. Generous visitation rights, but no claim to the house or to any of the assets acquired during the marriage. Most of those assets had been purchased with stolen money anyway, money that was gradually being repaid through the sale of the lake house, and Richard Carson's reluctant contributions after his own wife learned of the affair. Michael and Tommy still lived in the Lexington house, though it was officially in my name now. Michael paid a reasonable rent that went directly into a trust for Tommy's college education. He had taken a second job to repay the valid portions of the loans, insisting on making restitution despite my willingness to forgive much of the debt. "It's not just about the money, Mom," he had said during one of our many difficult but healing conversations over the past year. "It's about taking responsibility, about showing Tommy what it means to make things right when you've done wrong." My relationship with Michael was still fragile in some ways, still healing, but stronger in others than it had ever been. The crisis had stripped away pretense and forced honest communication. He had apologized, not just in words, but in consistent actions. He had acknowledged his failures, his willingness to be complicit in Jennifer's schemes, his neglect of our relationship over the years. And I had acknowledged my own role, how my unquestioning giving had enabled his sense of entitlement, how my reluctance to confront problems had allowed small issues to grow into insurmountable ones. We were learning, both of us, how to build a healthier relationship. "Dad's coming up tomorrow, right?" Tommy asked, interrupting my thoughts as he baited his hook for another cast. "Yes, for the whole weekend," I confirmed. "He's bringing those new hiking boots he promised you." Tommy nodded, satisfied. These summer weeks at the cabin had become our tradition. Tommy staying with me while Michael worked, then joining us for weekends when he could. The cabin that James had secretly purchased, that I had almost given to Tommy at his birthday party a year ago, had become our family sanctuary. Susan visited often, though she had returned to Florida for the winter months. Patricia Goldstein had become not just my attorney but a friend, joining us occasionally for Sunday dinners. Even Martha came up to the cabin sometimes, bringing her infamous peach cobbler and sharp observations about life. I had created a new family circle, I realized. Not replacing what was lost, but building something sturdy and authentic from the broken pieces of what had come before. As for Jennifer, she had moved to Chicago 6 months ago, with Richard Carson, whose wife had divorced him after learning of the affair. Tommy spoke with her weekly by phone and visited during school breaks. It wasn't ideal, but it was workable, and Tommy seemed to be adjusting with the resilience children often show when the adults in their lives are honest and supportive. "Grandma?" Tommy's voice pulled me back to the present again. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." He set down his fishing rod and came to sit beside me on the bench. "Are you still mad at Dad? For what happened before?" The directness of the question took me by surprise, though it shouldn't have. Tommy had always been perceptive, and the events of the past year had only sharpened his awareness of adult complexities. "No," I said after considering carefully. "I'm not mad anymore. Disappointed sometimes, still. Sad about what happened, but not angry." "And Mom? Are you mad at her?" This was trickier. I had worked hard not to disparage Jennifer to Tommy, recognizing that whatever her flaws, she was still his mother, and he loved her. "I think your mom made some bad choices," I said finally, "and those choices hurt a lot of people. But being angry doesn't help anything. I've learned it's better to focus on building good things than on staying angry about bad things." Tommy nodded, processing this. "Dad says he was a dummy, that he should have seen what was happening. Sometimes it's hard to see things we don't want to believe," I said gently, "especially about people we love. Like you didn't want to believe Dad and Mom were being mean to you? So perceptive, this child." "Something like that, yes." Tommy leaned against my side, his head resting on my shoulder. "I'm glad everything's different now. I like it better this way." "Me too," I said, putting my arm around him. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. From the cabin behind us came the faint sounds of the radio, the old-fashioned kind that James had insisted on keeping here, eschewing more modern technology in this place he'd considered a retreat from the world. "We should head in," I said, noting the coolness creeping into the evening air. "Hot chocolate and a game of chess before bed?" "Yes." Tommy gathered his fishing gear with the careful attention Michael had taught him. "I've been practicing with Dad. I might actually beat you this time." "We'll see about that," I teased, following him up the path to the cabin. Inside, as I made hot chocolate and set up the chessboard, I found myself thinking about James again, about the letter he had left, the provisions he had made, the way he had looked out for me even after he was gone. I wondered what he would think of how everything had unfolded, the betrayal, the confrontation, the slow healing that followed. I thought he would approve of where we had landed. Not perfect, not unmarred by the damage done, but authentic and honest in a way our family hadn't been for years. The trust fund he had secretly established had provided security not just for me, but for Tommy's future. The FBI contacts from his letter had helped navigate the legal complexities of the financial fraud. Even the cabin itself had become a cornerstone of our rebuilt family structure. As Tommy and I settled in for our chess game, the warmth of the cabin enfolding us, I felt a profound sense of peace. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. Not because all wounds were healed. Some might never fully heal. But because I had found my voice, my strength, my boundaries. I had learned, finally, that love doesn't mean surrendering your dignity, that being a mother doesn't mean being a doormat, that standing up for yourself can sometimes be the greatest gift you can give to those around you, showing them by example what self-respect looks like. "Checkmate," Tommy crowed triumphantly, pulling me back to the present yet again. He had indeed been practicing. His strategy was more sophisticated than I'd anticipated. "Well done." I conceded with a smile. Your grandfather was an excellent chess player too, you know. Tell me about him, Tommy said, settling back in his chair. The real stuff, not just the fishing stories. So I did. I told him about James's integrity, his quiet strength, his unwavering commitment to doing what was right even when it was difficult. I told him about our early years together, about the struggles we'd faced, about the values we'd tried to instill in Michael. And as I spoke, I realized I was doing more than sharing family history. I was crafting a legacy, a narrative that would help shape the man Tommy would become. A narrative of resilience, of moral courage, of the strength to stand up straight even when bending seems easier. Later, after Tommy was asleep in his small bedroom under the eaves, I sat alone on the porch, wrapped in a blanket against the night chill. The stars were brilliant here, away from city lights, spanning the darkness like scattered diamonds. A year ago, I had stood in a doorway holding a chocolate cake, hearing the words that had shattered my illusions. Who invited her? A year ago, I had been invisible in my own family, valued only for what I could give, not for who I was. Now, as I watched the stars and listened to the gentle lapping of the lake against the shore, I knew that the greatest gift of the past year's turmoil had been the reclamation of myself. Not just as Michael's mother or Tommy's grandmother, but as Eleanor Wilson, a woman of worth, of courage, of dignity. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear. There would still be difficult days, uncomfortable conversations, moments of doubt. Michael and I were still rebuilding trust. Tommy was still adjusting to the new shape of his family. Jennifer remained a complicated presence in our lives, even from a distance. But for the first time in decades, I was moving through the world on my own terms, seeing clearly, speaking truthfully, loving from a place of strength rather than fear. James had called me straight-backed Eleanor for a reason. It had taken losing nearly everything to remind me of that strength, that core of resilience that had always been there, waiting to be reclaimed. As I finally rose to go inside, I whispered a thank you to the stars, to James's memory, to whatever force had given me the courage to stand up when it would have been easier to keep bending until I broke. The life I had now wasn't the one I had imagined. It was harder in some ways, simpler in others, but it was authentically mine, earned through tears and courage, shaped by both loss and recovery. And in that authentic life, I had found something I'd nearly forgotten existed. Not just the love of others, but love and respect for myself.